Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denicia.
Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hail my neighbor. 60,000 people strong, and the vibes is never wrong. We are beauty, we are power. We are people in the sun. We are beaches, we are rivers. We are melanated ones. We special and there is no denying. Tobago is number one. I am you and you are me. Together we stronger. Good morning, Tobago.
Good morning, and welcome to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates, guys. You know, when you see me sitting here, it's because we're about to have those conversations that you want to have to get your day started and ask those questions that you want to be asked and you want to know. This morning, we're going to start off talking a bit about some politics. Now, last week we saw something quite historical happening here on the island of Tobago, something that we've never really seen before. We've seen the progression or the preparation for a new party launch happening basically in the public domain, whereby we have members of this current administration who are currently preparing to launch a new party, having had that preparation to launch event at the Shore Park Cultural Complex. Now, we saw that they only invited members to sit in, and the media was briefly invited to sit in for the introduction of that session. But all in all, we heard from Dr. Faith B. Israel as well as Natasha Second, who made it clear that the preparation for launch was not an actual launch of the party, which was a bit of a confusion in the public space. Now, this morning, we're going to get a bit more into that conversation. We're going to dig down into the details and find out if this party is really going to be a viable option for Tobagonians within the next elections. And to have that conversation this morning, I have the privilege of sitting with Mr. Anthony James, who is a political activist on the island of Tobago here, and a man who is extremely vocal in regards to this progression of a new dawn of politics in Tobago. Because what we have seen within the last year is something that is quite new to the political environment on the island of Tobago. And we would deem it the progression of the new dawn of politics on the island. And so I just want to welcome you, Mr. James. Thank you for taking the time out to sit with me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Right. And we're going to dig down a bit into that, what we saw happening last week with the preparation for this new party launch. And we saw in the news in 90 seconds earlier this morning that former head of the public service, Reginald Dumas, he came out and he commented and he applauded them for the efforts being made to actually move out on their own, separating themselves from that contentious PDP banner and having the independence that the people have requested to start a new party. So maybe we start off with some general views and perspectives on what we've seen happening last week from you.
Yeah, well, you spoke of the dawn of a new politics in Tobago. I agree with that. Well, you said on the island.
Yes, a progression of that new dawn.
I don't agree with you that it's a politics on the island.
Okay.
You know, that terminology, we have to be very careful with the on the island thing because it doesn't speak to ownership. It speaks to that status we just on an island. And it's something that we have to be wary of because all that is political. You won't hear Trinidadians saying that and Bajans and the other people. It has been reserved for Tobagonians because of the language we have heard from Trinidad that's describing us. But we have to be in our own minds and in our own reality, our own truth. And the fact of the matter is that we are in our own country and we are a nation here in Tobago. And it's from that perspective, Chanel, that Tobagonians must perspectivize ourselves and conceive ourselves. The politics must have that consciousness inside of it. It can't be where we're just on the island, because that is what is going on in the politics. Now, we have what we call a band or group of independents in the executive council, and you have the assistant secretaries and so on. Now, they all came about as a result of one man. So that if we have to ascribe a vision, a known articulated vision, we have to ascribe that vision to the leader. Because remember how it happened? 2015, Mr. Duke came in as an independent, and by 2017, he formed a political party for the Tobago House of Assembly election. And then the rest now is history. So Mr. Duke would have been going around and picking up people. Now Mr. Duke is no longer there with them. The question is now, how do we ascertain, attribute a vision really to the Lord? How do we ascertain and attribute, attach a vision to Fali Augustine? Fali Augustine is very new, and he has been earmarked to be the political leader. Now, I really don't know Fali Augustine in the political space any length of time. He has not articulated and negotiated a vision and a direction to the people of Tobago. He has not forged that. His vision has not been really discussed. So I really don't know. And the population actually don't know. And herein lies, this is a question that we must ask ourselves, and we must answer. What is the purpose of a political party in a history, in a nation, in a people, in an experience such as Tobago? What is necessary at this point in time? What really is necessary?
Right. And you suggested that the vision would have come from Mr. Duke, which...
An articulated vision to the public.
Correct. Yeah. Now, that was a vision for the dawn of a new political era. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people kind of like to look at the whole Watson Duke Farley situation, kind of like the whole David and Solomon situation, whereby even though David wanted to build that temple, he was not able to, because his son was the one who had the ability to. When Solomon came in, he was the one who had the ability to, who God allowed to do that. So many people see it as, although he may have set the stage for a new dawn of politics, he may not have been able to, like Moses, even enter into the promised land because of certain things that would have kept him back from that. Now, we would have seen certain public dispositions of Mr. Duke that would have been a public demonstration that there's a certain level of leadership and competence that he may not have in order to really carry the people of Tobago to the place where we are globally competitive, where we can be taken seriously on the global stage.
But that may be so, and I'm not really dealing with the shortcomings of Watson Duke or even the pluses, so to speak. I'm just really dealing with context, because we must answer the question, what really is the purpose? So what are we going to get out of a political party at the end of the day?
And first then all, that brings into question, how can we separate the things that were said on the campaign trail by Mr. Duke as opposed to what was said by Mr. Augustine? Because we saw, as a part of their strategy during that campaign, that Mr. Duke, especially within the last election that took place at the December 6th election, we saw him taking a backseat. We saw Mr. Augustine coming forward and being a lot more vocal in regards to understanding that he was the more appealing character to the public. So then therein lies the question, whose vision was Farley articulating? Was he articulating the greater vision of the PDP party at that time, or was that his vision for Tobago? And therein we can begin to question if that was his vision for Tobago or that was the PDP vision for Tobago.
Well, I say the root of it would have been Mr. Duke. What I'm really trying to answer here is the relevance of a political party or political parties or groupings and ideology actually in Tobago. What is the ideology that is necessary for Tobago? You follow what I'm saying? So I'm saying, first of all, we have to answer that question. We might just have a party just there for the purpose of winning an election and occupying office. At the end of the day, we go nowhere. So the question is, I want all of you and I and all of Tobago to answer. What is the political imperative? What is the evolutionary imperative for you
What
and
is
me
the
and
vision?
all Tobagonians? We must answer that. When we answer that, then we take the action to match that. You follow what I'm saying? Apart from having the vision too, you also have to have a passion, a conviction, strategy, a means to go there. But we know it because we know the history. The history here we have come from Africa, right? Okay, and we came under oppression, suppression. We came in bondage. So when we left Africa and come here, we couldn't make any laws for ourselves. To this day, here, Tobagonians are not making any laws in our own bodies, in our own temples, in our own story, in our own daily walk and passage. We are not navigating that legislatively or even executively because there's a sovereign in Trinidad, and that is the context here.
Right.
All right. So just before you come in, Chanel, so that you examine the leadership in Tobago at this point in time, they are there more than a year. Have we seen actions that are contextual to Tobago's history, to the Tobago experience? No, that is more than a quarter, more than 25% of a term has gone, but we haven't seen any robustness. In fact, we have seen nothing, period, where Tobago must get out from this context that we are living in every day and believing it is normal. So there are two things that can happen. You can either use the House of Assembly and turn Tobago into a sovereign nation, turn that very institution into a sovereign institution, or we can operate a local government. The evidence is there. And from the evidence, you've seen a local government mentality. Now, that same local government mentality is going to morph now into a political party.
Right, and herein lies my next question that I was getting to. So you're getting into the next question a bit. So when we talk about autonomy, we look at the PDP party as having brought that to the table as one of their big ticket items during the campaign. Right. And we see this new party being formed, and we hear sentiments of movements towards Tobago autonomy being echoed as well. But we have the same group of people. So the question therein lies, can we trust them with Tobago autonomy?
Well, the answer to that is a resounding no. The evidence is there. One of the things we have to understand in Tobago, we have people popping up without vision and ideas and so on. You having that because people are interested, and office exists. So people are going to go there and work in the office. Mind you, since the inception of this new House Assembly that started in 1996. Now, initially, it was from 1980, with Act 37 of 1980. In 1996, it was upgraded and it became a legislature, pseudo legislature, however you may choose to call it. But it is something that you can use now because you can actually make laws. What you have had here is that you have a law exists from 1996 to now, and not a single law has been made. What is the definition of a legislator? A legislator is to legislate, to make laws. Forgetting the legislator that exists now, even the one in Trinidad, Tobagonians have a right. The parliament in Trinidad cannot prevent anybody from Tobago from being free. And constitutions do not give freedom. Constitutions ought to protect and to safeguard. So in the sovereign real sense, Tobagonians are free if in our free mindset, and they could have used the opportunity. But if you notice, too, as I said, they have not used the legislature. There's not a single law, but they are legislators. When you become an assemblyman or a member of the House of Representatives, you are actually a legislator. Let me quickly say, is that in Tobago, people are going around election times and picking up anybody and say, hey, become a policymaker, become a governor, become a leader, become a lawmaker, become a legislator. And what you're seeing is that the capacity, the understanding is not there. And so that you had this massive failure that nobody's accounting for. Last few Thursdays ago, the House was supposed to meet. Now, the principle of government is that the government can't stop. It can't fail. Anytime the government stops, that's an insurrection. That's treason. But you're not hearing that conversation. And up to now, the chief secretary, who is the leader of the pack, he's not saying anything. the deputy chief secretary who he left there because he was not here, and he can't give account for where he was because he was not on assembly business. He went to Germany, and then he ended up in Jamaica. The principal of the Jamaica trip was the Honorable Ian Ballard. He was back at work on Monday, the Monday preceding. Where was Father Augustine? He abandoned his post, but here he's there, Mark. Deputy Faith Brebner, Israel, was the leader here. You're not hearing any statement. All we are hearing unofficially is that the clerk didn't come. When you read the law didn't say the clerk has to be there. It is clear there. If you should get the law, what it says is that the clerk shall keep in proper form a record or the record of the proceedings. Keep, not record the meeting. Because that there is an institution they set up. So there are workers there to take the record. Keeping the record really is a matter of filing. It's the Hansard, and you have to file it. I work at the electrical inspectorate. We keep records in proper form.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
And another question is, when we talk, going back a little bit to the question of what is the vision of this new party being formed, they have now created a process whereby they are looking for the people to be a key part of who they are, their identity, their colors, their symbols, the philosophy behind it. So don't you think that it would be of great assistance to them and also contribute to this new dawn of politics that we're seeing here on the island by allowing Tobagonians to feed into that new vision?
Well, I don't think there's any vision there really. There's no vision there. What is driving that there is the lust for power, is the lust for office, getting a 2 terms and a 3 terms. When you look at the trajectory, the body language, the evidence so far coming out from them, there has been no movement towards lifting the people of Tobago to register Tobago as an international nation in the world. Unless Tobago becomes an international nation registered officially, Tobagonians will get nowhere, or sportsmen will continue to suffer. Everybody will be discriminated against, but nobody respects anybody who can't make a law.
But do you think us being a sovereign nation is something that Tobagonians on a whole want?
What? I think subconsciously you listen, because we complain.
Because we don't want to impose anything on the people that they don't necessarily
No. Well, it's not an imposition. Every man is entitled to freedom.
Correct.
When you talk about sovereignty, you're really talking about your freedom.
Correct.
Anything short of slavery is bondage. The police is controlled from Trinidad. The army is controlled from Trinidad. The election, every single thing, immigration is controlled by the stadium is controlled. The reason for that is we are not sovereign, and this is something that we can't hide from. We're going to be living a life of insults and so on. But we know these things. We have experienced these things. You have a cricketer now suffering. He was a standout on the West Indies youth team and on the West Indies under-23 team, Joshua James. But there are no selectors for Trinidad and Tobago from Tobago. I mean, how can we live with that? We are really, really playing the fool of ourselves here in Tobago. And the politicians that you have exist are not dealing with, they're not examining that situation. They're not dealing with it.
All right. And when we talk about this party making itself viable enough to run in an upcoming election, because you said a number of things, what do you think their focus needs to be on?
The focus for all Tobagonians is to get out of bondage. We have to overcome the hurdle that currently exists, which is Trinidad over Tobago. We can't get anywhere. Even our very budget, all the boasts about fixing economy in Tobago. You can't fix no economy in Tobago unless you are in charge. You're not in charge of your oil, you're not in charge of your gas. Tobago is being run like a parlor. Let the reality sink into all of us. You are depending on a transfer of money from Trinidad. Trinidad is controlling everything. Back in 2008, they were looking for gas around Tobago, yeah? Petro-Canada came in, and then Centrica. We have to remember these things. They stopped the fishermen from fishing in Tobago, and they discovered acres of gas in Tobago. Block 22 alone is 12 times bigger than the landmass of Tobago. Block 22 is off Castar and Shallaville area there, with trillions of gas. children of Cuban feet of gas. Let me tell you something. I want to tell Tobagonians something, that the richest country, the richest people in the country, we should not attach that to self-government. Money or riches have nothing to do, with self-government. Self-government is your right. And everybody must live governing yourself. That is how God ordained it. Anything else different is from the devil. But nevertheless, Tobagonians need to understand that the people of Tobago are the richest people in the English-speaking Caribbean.
And this conclusion is based on our natural resources.
Based on our resources.
And our entitlement to
it is
access.
Ours. And I'm saying, as a good point you make there, we have to start to think as owners in Tobago. We have to preach the politics of ownership and possession, because up to this day, we don't really own Tobago. We know it rightfully belongs to us. But Tobago itself doesn't belong to us. We are living like squatters here in Tobago. We can't regulate. So people are committing disrespecting us. But I'm saying all of this to say that this is what needs to inform and to drive our politics, and we need to have a passion about it. You have to have an understanding also. What you see there that took place in your house, I'm not letting it get away. I'm not speaking anything untruth. I'm being fair and being logical. Imagine you have a simple law written there in the act, and it's like none of them could have read it and understood it. You read there, the clerk of the house shall keep in proper form the record of the proceedings. And the gentleman who read it, no criticism, I'm just being objective here, he read it as though the clerk of the house is responsible for recording, because he saw the word record. And I'm saying all of them should have been looking at this. Why would I entrust my future into a revealed lack of understanding? So for a while now, the politics of Tobago has been an eater food politics. And I've heard members of the regime saying this time is our time. And a lot of what is going on is really having two terms to get pension and different things. I'm saying to Tobago, I'm saying to you, I'm saying to myself, I'm saying to Tobago, what is emerging there is going to collapse. God will not permit it, because the time has come, as you said, for a new politics. What exists there does not have the ability, the understanding, the capacity. And look at what has happened. They are mandated to hold a meeting of the House once a month, and could not even achieve that. And we've seen a coincidence of presiding officer absent, clerk of the House. We need an investigation. Nobody went with any gun to close down the House, but yesterday the House couldn't work. The House could not work because of the own lack of understanding, but you want a political party to do what? And
so what you are expressing is that you have no confidence in the formation of this new party. But are you giving them an F even before the test begins?
Well, I live in Tobago for a long time. I mean, you can do a head count, you know. You can do a head count. You can name out the members, the leadership. Well, you already have the leader earmarked already. And there is no way, given the fact that he has resisted Duke, because Duke wanted to take over after the election, clearly he said that was his dream and he wants it. No, I don't know that Farley has any kind of capacity to lead Tobago anyway. I'm very, very clear about, I'm absolutely clear about that. Farley has happened maybe for a reason too. But Farley's happenstance. Duke was looking for candidates and so on, and Farley happened. Tobago must understand that. Farley never came to anybody here with any real vision, contextualizing Tobago. Even as he is there now, they talk about what they call autonomy, and it's not autonomy. It is those past people in Tobago who keep keeping this word autonomy alive. We need to be speaking about our sovereignty. But since they are there for more than a year, somebody raised the talk sometime. He said, all right, well, he go set up something. That is about 7-8 months ago. The talk died down, and he just left it there.
But do you think that Tobagonians can revert to going back to the PNM, seeing that we had 21 years of the PNM being in power? We saw the PNM in Trinidad, PNM in Tobago, yet very little advancement happening towards the conversation of self-governance.
Well, the PNM were never going to lead Tobago, and they can't, because the PNM aren't from here. The PNM in Tobago is merely a branch, a foot, a toe That's the name, the Tobago Council of the PNM. They're not PNM. They are council of, belonging to. They belong to Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? So in that sense, they can't self-govern Tobago and they can't articulate. So if you had 21 years in power and then for a large chunk of it, you had PNM in Trinidad, that should tell you that they don't have any real vision to free Tobago because you have enough time. If you spend 21 years, you have enough time to implement that vision, you know.
Right. And so if we're saying that both options on the table are not viable options,
something needs to come. Something
Tobago forward.
And will emerge.
But isn't this the new thing?
It can't be because the evidence there is not telling us that. But the evidence is telling us there. And you see, we have to go back to the root of this, of what catapulted into this. We have to go back to the root.
And explain a bit for me when you said Tobago needs something new, a little bit, elaborate a little bit.
When I said Tobago, Tobago needs a new regime to emerge, to replace what is going on there. And there's a school of thought that tells us that both existing parties are really from Trinidad. Both existing parties are really from Trinidad. We won't deal too much with that. But clearly, the evidence so far, and the evidence going to become more compelling, but what you're seeing there, they are not able. What is happening now in Tobago? Every time somebody got on the stage now, autonomy. Because that's the buzzword. Autonomy. The PNM can produce it. There's no excuse. You have more than 1 year, more than 1 year. You have about 12 months, 13 months, 14 months, as the case may be, going on. And there is nothing, there is no strategy, there is no leadership, there is no taking on the enemy. There is no political debate between Tobago and Trinidad. There's no political debate. You see, the scripture speaks of wars and rumors of wars. There's a reason for that. Because this life is filled up. Ever since the angels fell and then mankind fell, there's injustice in the spirit, in the world, in the earth. On the earth, there is injustice. And the world is not kind as we think. We are naive to think so. You have to fight for your right. And so that there should be wars. There's nothing wrong with war. There should be war. And the people to fight the war, the Bible speaks of nation against nation, kingdoms against kingdom. The Tobago yearning, the Tobago just, the yearning is a just one. But it is the leader to do that. The leader does not have the experience, the capacity, the know-how. It is there before us. And we must know how he came about to. He happened. Duke came along pushing a message. Now the conversation was there going on. And so Duke came with the buzzwords and so on of autonomy. But now we've seen Duke in Trinidad.
Which is a direct contradiction to everything that he said.
And you have to understand too, when Duke first went to Trinidad on his travel or sojourn to Trinidad, you remember the party was supporting him? They were still all PDP.
Yes, but
these people were supporting the move, and
there isn't any evidence that there was really support.
Yeah, of course. They made several of them made statements defending Duke's foray to Trinidad when it just began. We can't forget that, they were supporting it. They never condemned it. They actually supported it. So what I'm saying here, there's no clear vision. I'm telling you, the overwhelming desire here is to get at least 2 terms. It's nothing different from what the PNM did. It's a eater food, is wanting prestige. But you see, there's a vision to be accomplished here. The youths of Tobago, especially the youths who are born with gifts and talent and want to express themselves. Tobago cannot continue to be under the shadow of Trinidad. Tobago, you can't run from your future. Tobago has to become an independent nation. They could jump high, jump low. That is the destiny. We can't afraid it.
Exactly.
And there's nothing to run, there's nothing to be afraid of. Really. Because God didn't make us to be, He never gave us a spirit of fear. You're the richest country. It's like the Tombstone in Plymouth. She was a mother, but she didn't know it. She was a wife. She didn't know it. That spirit is still in Tobago, and with the setup, the bombardment of wrong information that hit in the mind, always question you. Can you do this? Can you do that? Jesus Christ said, yes, we can. What's the message of Jesus Christ? You just had Easter go on there, which is a wrong name, is Passover. Because we have Jesus Christ is our Passover, the Passover from bondage to freedom, from death to life, from poverty to freedom. Easter has no meaning. You feel what I'm saying? But that's another.
That's our next conversation for next time. But we want to thank you because we're running out of time and we could go on and on and on with this conversation. But when we talk about sovereignty of the island of Tobago, you know, there must be a collective consciousness that is going along with that type of idea. That's true. It should never be any one man purporting that
I'm not,
Tobago
it shouldn't be me alone.
Yeah, it should be a collective approach.
But the thing is, my and Chanel, not everyone has the understanding that I have.
Understood. But what before you go, what message do you have for the people of Tobago and for the individuals that are taking the time out to really get down on the ground to understand what Tobagonians are trying to accomplish or what they desire from governance to create this new party?
I think Tobagonians understand that we are in a vulnerable situation. I think everybody knows that. The PNM were there, they were never into the Tobago thing, but they underwent, so to speak, so many challenges when they were there. So they understand. I think all of Tobago understand. We not understand it to the extreme extent that we are in a vulnerable. We have to wait for a budget. We can't develop Tobago. They want to develop Scarborough Port, so many things to be done, but we have no money. Not that the money is not here. Not that the money is not coming out from Tobago, but we don't own the money. We don't possess it. This is the issue. And we have to ask ourselves, is this a proper relationship with Trinidad? Is this a friendly relationship with Trinidad? Only the truth can answer that. Just before we came on here, as they were wrapping up the former interview, look at what came out of the guy who was being interviewed, the artist. You know what he said? They were asking him for a little intro, a little taste of the songs that he was going to sing. You know what he said, finally? He said they have to wait until he comes down to Tobago. You see anything wrong with that statement? They must wait until he comes down to Tobago. Where is he coming down from? Trinidad is the most down Caribbean island.
I think he was in Canada at the time of the interview. I believe he was in Canada at the time of the interview.
Well, if that's the case, that is okay. But the reason why I said that, because I interact with many as an electrical inspector, many contractors coming up. They don't ever say they're coming up to Tobago because they just can't conceive of Tobago as being
above. Understood. Well, again, Mr. James, thank you so much for taking the time, and hopefully we have another time where we could continue similar conversations. Again, thank you, and it's always interesting to have these conversations with you, and your very interesting perspectives on Tobago and Tobago sovereignty and what any successful political party should be thinking about or focused on, what the vision should be in order to enable success of the island. Again, thank you guys. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to return right after this.
Wake up with Candace and Denicia.
Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawn.